Today is Tuesday, September 23rd. What to know about President Trump's new message to pregnant women about preventing autism and how scientists and doctors are responding. Also, a U.S. Supreme Court case that could remake how independent government agencies operate. And inside ABC's decision to bring Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. Plus, former VP Harris talks about some of her regrets, the story behind Rapture posts on social media, and the first of its kind partnership between Netflix and a beer company that could change what you see on screen. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Trump is now warning pregnant women not to take Tylenol. He, along with federal health leaders, told Americans the active ingredient in Tylenol and other similar medicines, acetaminophen, could be a cause of autism, and that the only reason women should take it is, quote, if you can't tough it out. He also warned against young children taking Tylenol. And he said parents should break up their visits to the doctor so their kids don't get too many vaccines at once. But Trump did say he was getting ahead of his health advisors on these kinds of announcements. They go against the scientific consensus that has always said vaccines' benefits far outweigh the rare risks, and that Tylenol is a safe option, safer for pregnant women than alternatives like ibuprofen or aspirin, and safer than some conditions that the medicine can help with while pregnant. Still, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the FDA is going to be putting out an awareness campaign about the dangers. Though at this point, the FDA's wording is not quite as strong as the president's. It just says there has been an association found between Tylenol and autism in many studies, but that other large studies show the opposite, and so far none have proven it causes the disorder. Major medical organizations and autism advocacy groups are also emphasizing what the data shows and calling Trump's statements harmful, oversimplified, and dehumanizing. Tylenol's maker also says it strongly disagrees with the president's messages for expecting mothers, saying they face more risk from other conditions if they give up the drug. Scientists point out that a prolonged, untreated fever can itself hurt an unborn baby's development. Separately, the FDA is going to change the label on a drug called leucovorin, which is a form of folic acid, so it can be used as a treatment for autistic people, particularly those who struggle with speech. For now, it's used to help patients with the side effects from chemotherapy. Researchers have said leucovorin has also shown promise in some small studies on autism, but that it needs to be studied more. The Trump administration says parents aren't willing to wait. Remember, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, and the data shows as recently as 2022, it impacted roughly 1 in 31 American kids by the time they turned 8. Autism rates have climbed in recent years, but many scientists believe that it cannot be simplified to just one reason or cause, but has to do with a mix of genetics, environmental factors, and better screening. RFK Jr. also unveiled $50 million in new grants to investigate the possible causes of autism. Stay tuned. The U.S. Supreme Court has given President Trump another win, this time letting him fire the FTC's last remaining Democratic commissioner. And more than that, the High Court decided to formally reconsider a 90-year-old precedent that kept the president from firing officials like her at will. It actually has kept all presidents from firing officials of independent agencies unless there was cause like misconduct. Independent agencies include not only the FTC, but also the SEC, CIA, EPA, and many more. And if the Supreme Court overturns that precedent, which it's expected to do, those independent agencies won't have to be bipartisan. Presidents would be able to name all members of each agency, and then the next president would be able to fire them all if they are so inclined. Justices will hear arguments on that later this year. Jimmy Kimmel Live is coming back on the air tonight. Remember, it's been on hold since last week after the FCC chairman criticized Kimmel for suggesting Kirk Shooter was a Trump supporter, even though officials said the opposite at the time and later evidence backed them up. But Disney's ABC network has been facing a lot of backlash from public figures who believe the government's pressure and ultimately the network's decision to suspend Kimmel amounted to an attack on free speech. Just yesterday, more than 400 Hollywood and Broadway stars backed Kimmel in a letter, telling Americans to fight to defend and preserve our constitutionally protected rights. Then Disney made the announcement that it had negotiated the show's return with the star host. As of this morning, they haven't said how Kimmel will address the controversy or if there was an agreement on what he would say. Still, Kimmel won't be on TV in all markets tonight. Broadcasters Nexstar and Sinclair were originally the first to say they'd be taking Kimmel off the air. Together, they own and operate more than 60 ABC affiliates, reaching about 22% of the country. And now Sinclair says it's sticking with that decision, even as the broader company brings Kimmel back on. So far, no response from Nexstar. Well, NASA has been trying to find more astronauts to send to new space stations, the moon, and possibly Mars. The space agency considered more than 8,000 applicants, and yesterday it announced 10 that were chosen who would be making the big upcoming trips. The newest class includes scientists, engineers, and test pilots. And for the first time, there are more women than men in an upcoming class of astronauts. Only 370 people, mostly men, have ever been selected by NASA as an astronaut since the very first class debuted in 1959. Now, the latest 6 women and 4 men will go through 2 years of training before becoming eligible for spaceflight. They join 41 other active U.S. astronauts currently competing in what American officials consider to be the second space race with other countries. And now NASA's acting administrator says it's clear that, quote, "we're going to win." We have more news for you in just a moment, but first, thanks to our sponsor. I've been using OneSkin products for a while now, and I love how they approach aging at the cellular level. It's a science-backed skincare that helps me take care of myself in a smart, preventative way. So I was excited to try their newest launch, OS1 Hair. It's a lightweight, water-like serum powered by their OS1 peptide, the same breakthrough behind their skincare, but this one is designed specifically for the scalp. I like knowing that I'm actually doing something to help my hair be as healthy and resilient as possible for years to come. And I like that it's drug-free, prescription-free, and easy to work into my routine, plus it doesn't interfere with how I style my hair. And the reviews speak for themselves. Customers say their hair feels fuller, smoother, and shinier, some even noticing it's starting to grow back. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company, and by focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using the code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Now, back to the news. Millions of Jewish people around the world are celebrating Rosh Hashanah this week, otherwise known as the Jewish New Year. The holiday started last night at sundown and lasts until sunset tomorrow. Rosh Hashanah is one of the most sacred events on the Jewish calendar. The holiday is the start of a 10-day period of prayer, reflection, and repentance that leads up to Yom Kippur. Typically for Rosh Hashanah, Jewish people attend synagogue and many take off work to spend time with family and friends. Other traditional Rosh Hashanah customs include sounding the shofar, which is a ram's horn trumpet, and eating festive food like challah or apples with honey. You can say Happy New Year or Shana Tova to those who celebrate. Well, videos on social media are warning the rapture is coming today. The rapture is a belief in some forms of Christianity that all believers, dead or alive, will be taken into heaven as part of the end times. Well, a South African preacher predicted it's happening this week, tied to Rosh Hashanah. And that sparked a flurry of posts on TikTok under the hashtag #RaptureTalk. Some videos have claimed people are selling cars or homes in preparation. Others are apparently leaving behind notes or images on their phones to explain their disappearance. But many are just using it for humor or sarcasm. This isn't the first time a date has been set. Over the past few decades, high-profile evangelists and numerologists have repeatedly predicted the rapture, but none have come true. Today, former Vice President Kamala Harris comes out with her new book all about her losing campaign for president. And it's especially candid, even for a memoir. We've already mentioned how she wrote about former President Biden, saying, quote, "My feelings for him were grounded in warmth and loyalty. They had become complicated over time with hurt and disappointment." And the resentment seemed to get worse when he dropped out of the race, with Harris saying he seemed more interested in protecting his own legacy than boosting her chances to win. The former VP also got into some of her regrets. For example, she was disappointed in some of her own answers to several interview questions, like when she was asked what she would have done differently than Biden, and she said nothing. In another revelation, Harris admits Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was not her first choice for a running mate. She says she really wanted then Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, but that she felt asking America to support a black woman was already a tall order without adding a gay man to the ticket. Buttigieg has since said he was surprised by that take, that, quote, "The way you earn trust with voters is based mostly on what they think you're going to do for their lives, not on categories." Harris has also gotten some pushback from Democratic operatives all around the country. So far, Harris has not made any announcements about her political future, but she has announced an international book tour that kicks off tomorrow. American tech giant NVIDIA is making another multi-billion-dollar investment. This time, it's putting up to $100 billion into ChatGPT maker OpenAI. In other words, the two companies leading America's race for AI superintelligence are teaming up. The deal will help OpenAI build and run at least 10 gigawatts of NVIDIA systems for its AI data centers to train and run its next generation of models. That's basically enough power to match what 8 million homes use. And OpenAI's CEO says the results will be, quote, remarkable in a way I think we don't really know how to think about yet. A streaming giant and a global beer brand have reached a first-of-its-kind deal. Netflix is partnering with the world's largest beer producer, AB InBev. That's the company behind Budweiser, Corona, and more. Now, beer brands will be title sponsors of Netflix's programming. You may also see more of their beers in shows. For example, in Season 2 of The Gentleman, characters will be drinking Stella Artois. And the companies will be launching co-branded campaigns around Netflix live events like boxing matches, the NFL Christmas games, and the next Women's World Cup. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. When life gets tough, it's easy to vent to friends or family. But sometimes I'm not sure how much I really want to share, or if I'm taking over the conversation. And sometimes even the most well-meaning people don't know what to say or have the best advice. That's why I appreciate having a therapist. It's a space where I can talk honestly and always get a response that is actually helpful. They know when to support, when to ask a tough question, and when to help me think differently in order to be my best, happiest self. My therapist always seems to know how to handle difficult situations and teaches me a lot of strategies that I can use on my own later along the way. With BetterHelp, you don't have to struggle to find that type of match. They've been connecting people with licensed therapists for more than 10 years. Everything is online, flexible, and designed to fit into your life. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. So find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/newsworthy. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, where do corn mazes come from? Listen again next Tuesday for the answer and explanation. As for last week's trivia question, which U.S. bridge has hidden wine cellars? The answer is the Brooklyn Bridge. The cellars are built into the ramps leading to the East River on both the Manhattan and Brooklyn sides. They're not needed structurally, just for storage. As the story goes, when the bridge was first built in the 1800s, the proposed path went through 2 beverage companies. So by including the storage, the chief bridge engineer was able to keep them both happy. And by renting them out, he was able to raise money for the construction. The vaults stayed dark and cool year-round, so even the most expensive vintage wines were stored there. The cellars even survived the Prohibition when they were repurposed into exclusive speakeasies for the city's elite. Now, they're just used to store maintenance equipment for the city, but over the years, they've been opened back up for more fun occasions like art shows. Thank you so much for joining us to get caught up on the news today. As always, we'll be back tomorrow with the latest news to know. Until then, have a great day.